journey together, haven't we, so far? This episode 10, chapter 10 of our story, that will continue on, I think. So far we've covered some really controversial and contentious questions that inform the media's representation of transgender people, the concerns from right-wing conservative groups, and the protests that sort of head towards Drag Queen Story Hour, and the challenges in the UK government of the Scottish government's devolved powers trying to make it easier for trans people to get gender recognition certificates. All of these are sort of built out of models of gender that are a bit more conservative and a bit less inclusive. Indeed, our main model of gender in the West is this kind of is this binary deterministic model. We have two genders in the world, male and female. They're separate to one another. They're distinct. And what makes you the gender that you are can be determined at birth, basically by looking down. And we know that that's probably not true. We know, in fact, that's certainly not true. We know from people's experience there is a huge diversity of gender experiences, both within the binary, moving across the binary, and between and around the binary, beyond it entirely in some cases. And that massive diversity of gender experience is beautiful and wonderful, welcome in the world, and a very valid, legitimate part of human development, and not a pathology in any way. We see that these, as predicted by Ilan Mayer's minority stress theory, we can see that, some of these sort of rarer positions on the gender spectrum are for sure associated with negative health and or mental health outcomes. But that's not because they represent any kind of pathology within themselves, but rather because they represent a position that tends to be marginalized in society. And so we realize that what we need to do is largely to create a society where the most people can find a place to belong, including gender diverse folk. And in order to do that, we kind of have to start by thinking about a model of gender that we can get behind. That says, there's a bunch of genders that exist in the world, and what gender you are, we can understand using this new language. Now, we in the gender research group are trying to create one. We've been running what we call a Delphi methodology, where we ask young people to tell us what possibilities there are in terms of gender and develop a consensus with one another around those possibilities. And that hopefully is going to help us to inform a new model of gender that we're thinking of starting to create very, very soon. We also have some cross-cultural research as we take that methodology overseas and begin to engage in international research to wonder, across cultures, what experiences around the binary, what experiences of gender are universal and what are sort of culturally specific. Maybe we'll start to get some answers to those questions. In the meantime, though, we're going to have to try and work with a model of gender that at least makes clear in our own minds what possibilities are in the world, and that makes space for people that we can use to inform structures and systems that we create that are as inclusive as the people they're designed to serve. In order to do that, we're going to take a look at this little model here. You might have come across something akin to this. There's a model called the genderbread person, which has not been empirically tested in any way. And it's only one I mention here because it's sort of a little bit similar, but this is generated from our own work. In fundamental terms, we think that actually this is an oversimplistic model, not least because our most recent research highlights that for people, the level of fluidity of one's gender, how much it changes and in what contexts, is a unique individual difference variable that isn't captured by this model. Fluidity and gender variance, we need a better model to capture all of that. So we're going to be building one, and this is our sort of, bearing in mind that Gulgos and Olson's model, fascinating as it is a single spectrum. We're going to advocate for a handful of spectra along which it is possible for people to fall anywhere, multiple places, nowhere at all, and in any configuration, and that all of those are pretty valid ways of being in the world. Here we have three kind of dimensions, one to do with body, one to do with identity, and one to do with expression, and a masculine and feminine spectra. There are masculine and feminine spectra associated with each. So within body, one can have high masculinity, like with masculine components of a bodily configuration, or feminine components, or both, or neither. In terms of gender identity, one can be more masculine or more feminine, or both, or neither, or in multiple places at different times. And in terms of expression, one can choose more masculine, more feminine forms of expression, both or neither, or different at different times. And any configuration of these are legitimate ways of being in the world. And for sure, there are more common ways of being in the world here. More ways that are just more typical. But that doesn't mean they're more valid. There are ways that are more rare, very unusual. That doesn't make them any less valid. And what we need to make sure is that when we are designing structures and systems, like, for example, that login system at my GP's, I hit the button and the first thing it asks me is, are you male or are you female? The very least what we need to do is to recognize that that's probably not a really good way to identify somebody who's coming in, right? That only narrows it down by 50%, right? Like, it asks you for your date of birth, and then it checks your date of birth against the people who are due to be there at the surgery at that time, and then hazards a guess at who you are. Does my gender really make that any easier? It just reduces the pool by 50%, whereas the birthday reduces the pool by 150 or 350 or whatever. How many days are there in the year? I don't even know. How many days? 352. 352. It reduces it by 351 by 1 in 352. My brain has died. It's 10 episodes. I can't do it. But my point is that there are only 2 genders that they have up there, and I have to click one of them. And then, half of the people that would have clicked the other one aren't then included in the pool of people that it might look to. But if you've got the birthday in there are 351 other birthdays that people could have picked. Surely that's the tool that actually reduces when, the people that are the pool of people from whom it's selecting. So there's not even a good reason for it to be there. And so it's sort of egregious in a way that it actually creates a system where non-binary communities are invalidated for no good reason. It's not even convenient for the surgery to do it. So we have a responsibility, right? As people in the world, we have a responsibility to make a world where everyone can find a place to belong. And that's fundamentally what our research highlights, that everyone in this spectrum, everybody is trying to find a place to belong. In fact, let me introduce you to a legend, Dr. Annie McGowan. Annie McGowan, one of my all-time heroes, once again. I have so many personal heroes, but Annie is for sure one of them. She trekked all the way to Scotland to interview transgender young people who are transitioning in school at that time. So cool that she, went to that kind of effort just to be able to go and meet with them in person. 11-hour drive. She's a legend. And this is what she concluded, essentially. True belonging, she said, is the knowledge that I'm paraphrasing slightly, is the knowledge that as your genuine self, expressing your genuine feelings, you would be accepted. Our transgender young people are engaging in a process of transition, risking the belonging they experienced while feeling dysphoric in a pursuit of true belonging and gender euphoria as they begin to thrive as their authentic selves. As people in the world, all we need to do is to create a world that makes that possible. Gender euphoria, I can tell you, when I went to that secret society and I came home, I saw myself in the mirror just as I was passing. And for the first time, my brain categorized me as girl in the mirror as I walked past. I saw my face in the mirror and I saw girl for the very first time. And I burst into tears, just floods of tears. Because a weight had been lifted from my shoulders that I only knew was there because it was suddenly gone, as I suddenly saw myself as girl for the first time. It's a moment that only gender diverse people can know, as they embody who they are on the inside, on the outside for the first time. It's a feeling that is termed in the community as gender euphoria. And it genuinely is a beautiful thing. And we can help, the more people that we can help experience themselves as their authentic selves in the world, surely the better. We're not in the business of shaping anybody's gender identity. To be honest, the research suggests that we probably couldn't even if we tried. We're just wanting people to discover who they are for themselves, using a language that we can all share so that we can all understand that experience, and then to find a world that welcomes them as their authentic selves, whatever that finds its way to being, whatever kind of gender identity they discover within themselves. We form a world where everyone can belong. This series will continue on as we take a look at the changing landscape. We take a look at new questions that get generated, new research that gets published, and we take a look at answering new questions together. This is Classroom Psychology. You are very welcome here, and I very much look forward to seeing you in the next one.